There are two bills before the House that would increase the state minimum wage to $12 an hour and require employers to provide paid sick leave to employees. Tell me more about those proposals.
Well, the increase in the minimum wage bill is similar to the bill introduced last year. It would increase the state's minimum wage, which is already currently the highest minimum wage in the country. It would increase it to $12, kind of in a phased-in approach to 2020. And I don't support this measure for a couple different reasons. First and foremost, I think people who work hard deserve a living wage. The minimum wage, however, was never intended to be a living wage. It was intended to provide an entry point for people so they could gain employment skills, they could enter the job force, earn skills, and work their way up the economic ladder. And so by raising the minimum wage so high in a way that's through legislation, it really will harm those individuals that it's intended to protect by forcing employers to cut costs elsewhere. That is, reducing hours, reducing labor force. And so I think it's going to have some unintended consequences and some impacts on low-skilled workers. And that's exactly the class of workers that we're trying to help through other programs that we're going to champion this session to get our economy back on track. The other measure, paid sick leave, really it sounds great in theory. I mean, everyone ought to be able to stay home and care for a sick child or a sick family member. But again, these types of proposals would increase costs on employers and would hurt workers in the grand scheme by forcing employers to cut costs by reducing hours, cut other benefits. So I think they would have unintended consequences as well. So, I think there are other ways that we can go about addressing. We've got laws on the books already that protect jobs for leave, for family medical leave, and so forth. And I think this also should be an issue where employers negotiate with their employees to define a benefits package that's acceptable for not only workers but businesses as well. So that's what I hope to see happen this session.
What are your thoughts on the governor's cap and trade and capital gains proposals he made back in December?
Well, the governor has proposed increasing taxes by several $billions. First, through a capital gains tax, which he proposes that would raise about $800 million biennium. I'm opposed to that tax for a number of different reasons. First and foremost, it's very volatile, and to provide for a significant portion of funding of the state's budget on a very volatile tax, I think, is problematic. Also, people could easily avoid the tax by moving out of state or establishing residencies in other states. So I think that the governor's capital gains tax proposal is flawed in some key respects. The cap and trade proposal, likewise, is, I think, a flawed measure. First and foremost, Washington is one of the cleanest, greenest states in the country. We pride ourselves in our low carbon emission standards already in place. Washington State is a low carbon emission state. I think the cap and trade would have minimal impact on emissions globally, from a macro perspective. But at the same time, it would really impose some draconian rules and regulations on businesses. And it would also, I'm concerned that it would really increase the price of gas, some estimates up to $1 a gallon. And even though the governor proposes to raise $380 million a biennium through this cap and trade mechanism, it's not been done nationally, it's not been done internationally, and for one state, Washington State, to impose this on our own businesses and citizens, I think is not good policy. And so I'm absolutely opposed to that measure as well.
Several House Republicans have sponsored a bill to provide employers an incentive to hire veterans. Do you support that legislation?
Absolutely. Washington State has above the national average of the percentage of homeless veterans. We've got a significant military presence in Washington State with Joint Base Lewis McChord, Bremerton and Everett Naval Stations, Fairchild Air Force Base. So there's a lot of DOD and military influence in this state, and we have lots of veterans who are leaving the force every year. Some of those veterans are in a vulnerable spot, and they become homeless. And I think that explains why we have above average percentage of homeless veterans. The B&O, the bill as as drafted and introduced, would provide a B&O tax credit for those businesses that employ qualified veterans, and I wholeheartedly support that. You know, I spent the last 25 years as an officer in the Marine Corps. First 5 years on active duty, and then in the last 20 years in a reserve capacity. And I've seen firsthand some of the Marine veterans returning from overseas deployments who struggle with integration back into society, whether it be mental health issues, chemical dependency issues, financial issues, and also housing issues. So this is one, I think, small measure we can do for our men and women who are veterans, who have fallen on hard times, and I wholeheartedly support these employment opportunities that will be generated through this B&O tax credit.